1. Afternoon class. Now, everyone, do you know what this faintly white thing, often referred to as a river or a trail of spilled milk, truly is? The teacher asked, pointing at the large black constellation chart hanging on the blackboard, specifically at the part resembling the white misty band of the Milky Way. Campanella raised his hand. Then 4 or 5 others followed suit. Giovanni also attempted to raise his hand but quickly stopped. He had read in a magazine before that it was all stars. But lately, Giovanni had been feeling sleepy even in class every day, with neither the time nor the books to read, and he felt as though he couldn't grasp anything clearly. However, the teacher had already noticed this. "Giovanni, you understand, don't you?" Giovanni stood up energetically, but once he was on his feet, he couldn't answer clearly. Zanelli turned around from the seat in front and snickered at Giovanni. Giovanni became flustered and turned bright red. The teacher spoke again. "What is the Milky Way generally when examined closely with a large telescope?" Giovanni thought it was indeed stars, but he couldn't answer immediately this time either. The teacher looked troubled for a moment, then glanced at Campanella and called on him, "Well then, Campanella." But even Campanella, who had raised his hand so eagerly, stood up awkwardly and couldn't answer. The teacher stared at Campanella in surprise for a moment, then quickly said, "Well, all right," and pointed at the star chart himself. "When you gaze at this faint white Milky Way through a large, high-quality telescope, you can see countless small stars, can't you, Giovanni?" Giovanni nodded, his face flushing bright red. Yet, before he realized it, his eyes brimmed with tears. "That's right, I knew it, and of course Campanella knew it too. We had read about it in a magazine at Campanella's father's house, the doctor's residence. Not only that, but as soon as Campanella finished reading the magazine, he fetched a large book from his father's study, opened it to the section on the Milky Way, and the two of them gazed endlessly at the beautiful photograph filled with white dots on a pitch-black page. Campanella couldn't have forgotten that, yet he didn't respond immediately because recently I had been struggling with work both in the morning and afternoon, and even when I went to school, I didn't play energetically with everyone, and I hadn't been talking much with Campanella either. Thinking that Campanella felt sorry for me and deliberately didn't respond, I felt an unbearable sense of pity for both myself and Campanella. The teacher spoke again. "Therefore, if you truly think of this river of heaven as a river, each of those small stars corresponds to the grains of sand or gravel at the riverbed. Also, if you imagine it as a vast flow of milk, it resembles the Milky Way even more. In other words, all those stars correspond to the globules of fat floating finely in the milk. So what corresponds to the water of the river is something called a vacuum, which transmits light at a certain speed, and the sun and the earth are also floating in it. In other words, we are living in the water of the Milky Way. And when you look around from within the water of the Milky Way, just as water appears bluer the deeper it is, the deeper and farther parts of the Milky Way's bottom appear to have more stars gathered, and therefore, they appear faintly white. Please look at this model." The teacher pointed to a large double-convex lens filled with many shining grains of sand. "The shape of the Milky Way is just like this. Consider each of these shining grains as stars that shine by themselves, just like our sun. Let's assume our sun is almost in the center and the Earth is very close to it. Imagine standing in the middle of this at night and looking around inside the lens. In this direction, the lens is thin, so you will only see a few shining grains, that is, stars. In these directions, the glass is thick, so you will see many shining grains, that is, stars, and the distant ones will appear faintly white. This is today's theory of the Milky Way. Now, as for the size of this lens and the various stars within it, it's time, so I will talk about it in the next science class. Since today is the Milky Way Festival, everyone should go outside and look at the sky. That's all for now. Put away your books and notebooks." For a while, the classroom was filled with the sounds of opening and closing desk lids and stacking books, but soon everyone stood up properly, bowed, and left the classroom. Chapter 2. The Printing Office. When Giovanni left the school gate, 7 or 8 classmates were gathered around Campanella at the corner of the schoolyard by the cherry blossom tree, instead of going home. They seemed to be discussing going to pick up bottle gourds to make blue lights to float down the river for tonight's Star Festival. However, Giovanni waved his hand widely and briskly left the school gate. Meanwhile, in the town, the houses were preparing for tonight's Milky Way Festival by hanging balls of yew leaves and lighting lanterns on cypress branches. Giovanni did not return home, but instead turned 3 corners in town and entered a large printing office. He bowed to the person in a loose white shirt at the entrance's counter, took off his shoes, and stepped up. Then he opened the large door at the end. Inside, though it was still daytime, the lights were on, and many rotary presses were clattering away. People with cloths wrapped around their heads or wearing lampshades were working diligently, reading aloud or counting as if singing. Giovanni immediately went to the person sitting at the third high desk from the entrance and bowed. After searching the shelves for a while, that person said, "Can you manage to pick up this much?" and handed him a slip of paper. Giovanni took a small flat box from under the person's desk, crouched in the corner of the wall where many lights were on, and began picking up tiny type pieces, about the size of millet grains, one after another with small tweezers. A person with a blue apron passed behind Giovanni and said, "Hey, magnifying glass boy, good morning," and 4 or 5 people nearby laughed coldly without turning towards him or making a sound. Giovanni wiped his eyes repeatedly as he slowly gathered the type pieces. A little while after 6 o'clock, Giovanni, having filled the flat box with the type pieces he had picked up, checked them against the slip of paper he was holding and took them to the person at the previous table. That person silently accepted them and nodded faintly. Giovanni bowed, opened the door, and went to the counter from earlier. The person in the white clothes silently handed Giovanni a small silver coin. Giovanni's complexion suddenly improved, and he bowed energetically, grabbed the bag he had placed under the counter, and dashed outside. Then, whistling energetically, he stopped by a bakery, bought a loaf of bread and a bag of sugar cubes, and dashed off at full speed. 3. Home. Giovanni returned with great vigor to a small house on a back street. In front of the leftmost of the 3 entrances to the house, there were empty boxes planted with purple kale and asparagus, and the small 2 windows had their shades drawn. "Mother, I'm home." "Were you feeling all right?" Giovanni said as he took off his shoes. "Ah, Giovanni, your work must have been exhausting. It's cool today, isn't it?" "I've been feeling quite well." When Giovanni stepped into the entrance, he found his mother lying down in the room by the door, covered with a white cloth. He opened the window. "Mother, I bought some sugar cubes today. I thought I'd put them in your milk." "Oh, you should have them first." "I don't want any just yet." "Mother, when did sister come back?" "Oh, she returned around 3 o'clock. She helped out with various things." "Hasn't your milk arrived yet, Mother?" "I wonder if it hasn't come." "I'll go and fetch it." "Oh, take your time. You should eat first. Your sister made something with tomatoes and left it there." "Shall we eat then?" Giovanni took the plate of tomatoes from the window and munched on them along with some bread for a while. "Hey, Mom, I think Dad will surely come back soon." I think so too. But why do you think that?" "Because this morning's newspaper said that the fishing up north has been very good this year." But you know your father might not have gone out fishing." "I'm sure he did. There's no way Dad did something bad enough to end up in jail." "The big crab shell and reindeer antlers Dad brought and donated to the school are still in the specimen room. Even the 6th graders take turns bringing them to the classroom during lessons." "On the school trip the year before last, Dad said he'd bring you a sea otter coat next. Everyone says that to me when they see me. They say it as if they're teasing." "Do they say bad things about you?" "Yes, but Campanella would never say such a thing. When everyone talks like that, Campanella feels sorry for them. That person has been a friend of our father's since they were as small as you are." That's why Father took me to Campanella's house. Those were good times. I often stopped by Campanella's house on my way home from school. Campanella's house had a train that ran on an alcohol lamp. When you assembled 7 rails, it formed a circle, and there were utility poles and signal posts attached, with the signal light turning blue only when the train passed by. Once, when we ran out of alcohol and used kerosene instead, the can got completely sooty. "Is that so?" "I still deliver newspapers every morning, but the house is always so quiet." "Because it's early." "There's a dog named Zanelli. Its tail looks just like a broom. When I go, it sniffs and follows me. Sometimes it follows me to the corner of the town, and sometimes even further. Tonight, everyone is going to float lanterns made of crow gourd down the river. I'm sure the dog will come along too." "That's right. Tonight is the Milky Way festival." "Yeah, I'll take a look while I go to get the milk." Go ahead, but don't go into the river." I can only watch from the shore. I'll be back in an hour." "Go and enjoy yourself more. There's no need to worry if you're with Campanella." I'm sure we'll be together." "Mother, should I close the window?" "Yes, please. It's already cool." Giovanni stood up, closed the window, tidied up the plates and bread bags, and then put on his shoes with determination. "Well, I'll be back in an hour and a half," he said as he stepped out into the dark doorway. Chapter 4. The Night of the Centaur Festival. Giovanni descended the slope of the town lined with black cypress trees, wearing a lonely expression as if he were whistling. At the bottom of the slope, there was a large streetlight, casting a pale and splendid light. As Giovanni steadily made his way toward the lamp, his shadow, which had been trailing behind him like a vague monster, gradually became darker and more distinct, moving to his side, lifting its feet and waving its hands. I'm a splendid locomotive. This is a slope, so I can run fast. Now I've passed that streetlight. Look, now my shadow is like a compass. It spins around like that and comes to the front. As Giovanni pondered this and strode past the street lamp, Zanelli, wearing a new shirt with pointed collars, suddenly emerged from the dark alley on the other side of the lamp and swiftly passed by him. Zanelli? Are you going to float the crow gourd? Giovanni hadn't even finished speaking when, Giovanni, a sea otter coat is coming from your father! The boy shouted back, as if tossing the words over his shoulder. Giovanni suddenly felt a chill in his chest, and it seemed as if everything around him was ringing sharply. What is it, Zanelli? Giovanni shouted back loudly, but Zanelli had already entered the house with the cypress trees planted on the other side. Why does Zanelli say such things when I haven't done anything? He runs like a mouse, yet he says things like that because he's a fool. Giovanni, preoccupied with various thoughts, walked through the town beautifully decorated with lights and tree branches. The clock shop was lit with bright neon, and every second the bulging red stone eyes spun around. Various jewels rested on a thick glass plate the color of the sea, turning slowly like stars, and from the other side, a bronze centaur slowly came around. In the center, a round black star chart was adorned with blue asparagus leaves. Giovanni lost himself, gazing intently at the star chart. It was much smaller than the chart he had seen at school during the day, but when the plate was turned to match the day and time, the sky visible at that moment appeared within the oval. In the center, the Milky Way stretched from top to bottom like a faintly misty band, and at the lower part, it seemed to be faintly exploding and steaming. Behind it stood a small telescope with 3 legs, glowing yellow, and on the far wall hung a large chart depicting celestial constellations in the shapes of mysterious beasts, snakes, fish, and jars. Could there really be such scorpions and warriors densely packed in the sky? Oh, I wish I could walk endlessly among them, Giovanni thought, standing there in a daze for a while. Then suddenly remembering his mother's milk, Giovanni left the shop. Despite being conscious of the tight shoulders of his jacket, he deliberately puffed out his chest and swung his arms widely as he walked through the town. The air was clear, flowing through the streets and shops like water. All the streetlights were adorned with lush green fir and oak branches, and the 6 plane trees in front of the electric company were illuminated with countless small bulbs, making the area resemble a city of mermaids. The children all wore new, crisply folded kimonos and whistled the tune of the Star Festival. They ran around shouting, "Centaurus, shower us with dew," and lit blue magnesium fireworks, playing joyfully. However, Giovanni, at some point, bowed his head deeply again, lost in thoughts entirely different from the lively scene, as he hurried toward the milk shop. Giovanni once found himself in a place on the outskirts of town where numerous poplar trees floated high against the starry sky. He passed through the black gate of the milk shop, stood in front of the dimly lit kitchen that smelled of cows, took off his hat, and said, "Good evening." But the house was silent, with no sign of anyone being there. "Good evening, excuse me." Giovanni stood straight and called out once more. After a while, an elderly woman came out slowly, looking unwell, and mumbled something about what he wanted. "I came because I didn't receive milk today," Giovanni said earnestly and with vigor. "There's no one here now, so I don't know." "Please come back tomorrow," the woman said, rubbing the area under her red eyes, looking down at Giovanni. "My mother is sick, so I need it tonight. Then please come back after a little while." The woman seemed about to leave. "I see. Well, thank you." Giovanni bowed and left the kitchen. As Giovanni was about to turn the corner at the crossroads, he saw 6 or 7 students approaching, holding lanterns made from crow gourds, their black shadows and faint white shirts mingling in front of the general store on the way to the bridge. They were whistling and laughing, and Giovanni recognized the familiar sounds as those of his classmates. Giovanni instinctively felt a jolt and considered turning back, but he changed his mind and walked towards them with renewed determination. "Are you going to the river?" Giovanni was about to say, feeling a slight lump in his throat. "Giovanni, the otter coat is coming!" Zanelli, who had spoken earlier, shouted again. "Giovanni, the otter coat is coming!" Everyone else joined in shouting immediately. Giovanni's face turned bright red, and he hurried to pass through the group, unsure if he was even walking. Among them was Campanella, who looked at Giovanni with a concerned expression, smiling slightly but worried that Giovanni might be upset. Giovanni avoided Campanella's gaze as if fleeing, and once Campanella's tall figure had passed by, everyone started whistling. When Giovanni turned the corner of the street and looked back, he saw Zanelli also looking back. Campanella too walked towards the dimly lit bridge, whistling loudly. Giovanni felt an indescribable loneliness and suddenly started running. The little children, who were hopping on one foot with their hands over their ears and shouting, "Wow!" thought Giovanni was running for fun and shouted, "Hooray!" Soon, Giovanni hurried towards the dark hill, the weather wheel pillar. Behind the pasture was a gentle hill, its black, flat summit appearing more dimly and lower than usual under the northern Great Bear constellation. Giovanni continued climbing the small path through the dew-covered grove. The path, a single white line illuminated by starlight, wound through the dark grass and thickets that appeared in various shapes. Among the grass were small insects shining a bright blue, and some leaves appeared translucent blue, reminding Giovanni of the crow-gourd lanterns everyone had carried earlier. Beyond the pitch-black pine and oak forest, the sky suddenly opened up, revealing the Milky Way shining white from south to north. The weather wheel pillar at the summit was also clearly visible. Flowers, whether bellflowers or wild chrysanthemums, bloomed all around as if their fragrance was wafting from a dream. And a bird flew over the hill, singing as it went. Giovanni reached the weather wheel pillar at the summit and threw his pounding body onto the cold grass. The town lights glimmered like a palace submerged in the sea's depths, and the faint sounds of children's songs, whistles, and sporadic shouts could be heard. The wind howled in the distance. The grass on the hills swayed gently, and Giovanni's sweat-drenched shirt was chilled by the cool air. Giovanni gazed out over the vast, dark fields stretching beyond the town's edge. From there, the sound of a train could be heard. The small train's windows appeared as a line of tiny red lights, and imagining the many travelers inside peeling apples, laughing, and engaging in various activities, Giovanni was overcome with an indescribable sadness and turned his eyes back to the sky. They say that entire white band in the sky is composed of stars. However, no matter how much he looked, he couldn't believe the sky was the empty, cold place the teacher had described during the day. On the contrary, the more he looked, the more it seemed like a field with small woods and pastures. And Giovanni saw the blue Koto stars multiply into 3 or 4, twinkling, with legs appearing and disappearing, eventually stretching out like mushrooms. He also thought that even the town right below him resembled a vague collection of stars or a large cloud of smoke. Chapter 6, the Milky Way Station. And Giovanni noticed that the weather vane pillar right behind him had somehow transformed into the shape of a vague triangular sign. It flickered like a firefly for a while, gradually becoming clearer until it stood still, set against the deep steel-blue field of the sky. It stood straight and clear, like a freshly forged blue steel plate in the sky. Then, from somewhere, a mysterious voice could be heard. Just as he thought he heard it say, "Milky Way Station, Milky Way Station," the scene before him suddenly brightened. It was as if countless firefly squid lights had been fossilized and suspended in the air all at once. Or like someone had suddenly overturned and scattered diamonds that a diamond company had hidden to keep prices from dropping. The view before him brightened in an instant. Giovanni couldn't help but rub his eyes repeatedly. Before he knew it, Giovanni found himself on a small train that continued to clatter along. In reality, Giovanni was seated in a carriage lined with small yellow lights of the Nightlight Railway, gazing out the window. Inside, the seats covered in blue velvet were mostly empty, and on the opposite wall, painted in mouse-gray varnish, 2 large brass buttons gleamed. He noticed a tall child in a wet-looking black coat sitting in the seat directly in front of him, sticking his head out the window to look outside. Something about the child's shoulders seemed familiar, and with that thought, he became desperate to know who it was. Just as he was about to stick his face out the window, the child suddenly pulled his head back in and looked at him. It was Campanella. Just as Giovanni was about to say, "Campanella, have you been here all along?" Campanella replied, "Everyone ran quite a bit, but they ended up falling behind. Even Zanelli ran a lot, but he couldn't catch up." Giovanni thought, "That's right, we set out together just now," and suggested, "Shall we wait somewhere?" To this, Campanella replied, "Zanelli has already gone home. His father came to pick him up." As Campanella said this, for some reason, his face turned slightly pale, and he seemed to be in some sort of distress. This made Giovanni feel a strange sensation, as if he had forgotten something somewhere, and he fell silent. However, as Campanella gazed out the window, he regained his energy completely and said enthusiastically, "Oh no, I forgot my canteen. I also forgot my sketchbook, but it's okay. We'll soon be at the swan station. I really love watching swans. Even if they're flying far away over the river, I'm sure I can see them." Then, Campanella kept turning a round map like a board, looking at it intently. Indeed, on it, a railway line was shown in white, running southward along the left bank of the Milky Way. The remarkable thing about this map was that on the pitch-black board, like the night, each station, triangulation point, spring, and forest was studded with beautiful lights of blue, orange, and green. Giovanni felt as if he had seen that map somewhere before. "Where did you get this map? It's made of obsidian, isn't it?" Giovanni asked. "I got it at the Milky Way station." "Didn't you receive one?" Did I pass through the Milky Way station? We're here now, aren't we?" Giovanni pointed just north of the sign for the station marked Swan. "That's right." "Oh, is that the riverbank in the moonlight?" When they looked over, the silver grass of the sky shimmered in the pale light of the Milky Way's shore, swaying gently in the wind and forming waves. "It's not moonlight. It's shining, because it's the Milky Way." As Giovanni spoke, he became so delighted he felt like jumping, tapping his feet, sticking his face out the window, and whistling the Star Festival tune as he stretched to see the water of the River of Heaven. At first, he couldn't make it out clearly, but as he focused more, he saw that the beautiful water was clearer than glass or hydrogen, sometimes flickering with tiny purple waves or glinting like a rainbow, flowing silently. Across the fields, phosphorescent triangular markers stood beautifully, small in the distance and large up close, the distant ones clear in orange and yellow, the nearer ones bluish and slightly hazy, arranged in triangles, quadrilaterals, or shapes like electricity or chains, shining all over the fields. Giovanni, feeling a thrill, shook his head vigorously, and indeed, the blue and orange and variously shining triangular markers across the beautiful fields seemed to flicker and tremble as if taking a breath. "I've completely come to the heavenly fields," Giovanni said. "And this train isn't burning coal," Giovanni said, thrusting his left hand out the window and looking ahead. "It's probably alcohol or electricity," Campanella said. Clattering along, the small, beautiful train ran endlessly through the wind-fluttered silver grass of the sky, through the water of the River of Heaven and the bluish-white glimmer of the triangular points. "Ah, the gentian flowers are blooming. It's already completely autumn," Campanella said, pointing out the window. Among the short grass edging the tracks, there bloomed splendid purple gentian flowers, as if carved from moonstone. "Should I jump off, grab it, and jump back on again?" Giovanni said, his heart racing. "It's no use. It's fallen too far behind." Before Campanella could finish speaking, the next gentian flower, glowing brightly, drifted past. As soon as he thought that, countless gentian flower cups with yellow bottoms surged forth like rain, passing before his eyes one after another. The row of triangular markers stood ever more brilliantly, as if they were smoking or burning. Chapter 7. The Northern Cross and the Pliocene Coast. The Northern Cross and the Pliocene Coast. "I wonder if Mother will forgive me." Suddenly, Campanella, as if making a firm decision, hurriedly said with a slight stutter, "Giovanni." "Ah, yes, my mother is over there, near that small, dust-like orange triangular marker in the distance, thinking about me now," he thought, absent-mindedly remaining silent. "If it truly makes my mother happy, I'll do anything. But what exactly is her greatest happiness?" Campanella seemed to be desperately holding back tears. "Your mother hasn't done anything terrible, has she?" Giovanni exclaimed in surprise. "I don't really understand. But if anyone does something truly good, they are the happiest. So I think my mother will forgive me." Campanella appeared to have made a firm decision. Suddenly, the interior of the carriage was brightly illuminated. Looking around, it seemed as if water was flowing silently and shapelessly over the dazzling riverbed of the Milky Way, gathering all the beauty of diamonds and dewdrops on grass. In the middle of that flow, a faintly blue and pale island with a halo of light appeared. On the flat top of the island stood a magnificent and eye-catching white cross, as if cast from frozen Arctic clouds, adorned with a clear golden halo, standing quietly and eternally. "Hallelujah, hallelujah!" Voices rose from the front and back. Turning around, the travelers in the carriage were all standing straight, with the folds of their kimonos hanging down, pressing black Bibles to their chests or wearing crystal rosaries, each person modestly clasping their fingers in prayer. The two of them stood up straight involuntarily. Campanella's cheeks shone beautifully, like the red of a ripe apple, and the island and the cross gradually receded into the distance behind them. The opposite bank also glowed faintly blue and seemed to be shrouded in mist. Occasionally, the silver of the pampas grass swayed in the wind, appearing like smoke, as if someone had blown on it. The way many gentian flowers hid and emerged from the grass seemed like gentle foxfire. It was only for a brief moment. The space between the river and the train was blocked by rows of pampas grass, and the island of swans appeared twice behind them, but soon became distant and small, turning into a picture. Then the pampas grass rustled and eventually disappeared completely from view. Behind Giovanni, a tall nun dressed in black with a Catholic air had been sitting for who knows how long. She gazed intently with her round green eyes, listening devoutly as if she could still hear words or voices coming from there. The travelers quietly returned to their seats, and the two of them, filled with a new feeling akin to sadness, gently exchanged words in different languages. "We'll soon be at Swan Station, won't we?" "Yes, we'll arrive precisely at 11. Already the green signal light and the faint white pillars flashed past the window. Then, the light in front of the switch, dim like a faint glow of sulfur, passed beneath the window, and the train gradually slowed down. Soon, the lamps lined up on the platform appeared beautifully and orderly, gradually growing larger. The two of them stopped right in front of the large clock at Swan Station. On a refreshing autumn day, the two blue steel hands on the clock face clearly pointed to 11 o'clock. Everyone disembarked at once, leaving the interior of the train empty. Below the clock, it read 20-minute stop. "Shall we get off too?" Giovanni asked. "Let's get off!" The two of them jumped up simultaneously, dashed out the door, and ran toward the ticket gate. However, there was only one bright purplish lamp lit at the ticket gate, and no one was there. Even when they looked around, there was no sign of a station master or a porter. The two of them emerged into a small square in front of the station, surrounded by ginkgo trees that looked like crystal crafts. From there, a wide road stretched straight into the blue light of the Milky Way. The people who had disembarked earlier were nowhere to be seen. As the two walked side by side along the white road, their shadows stretched out in all directions like the shadows of two pillars in a room with windows on all sides, or like the spokes of two wheels. Before long, they reached the beautiful riverbank they had seen from the train. Campanella picked up a handful of the beautiful sand, making a squeaking sound with his fingers, and spoke dreamily. "This sand is entirely crystal. There's a small fire burning within." "That's right," Giovanni replied absent-mindedly, pondering where he had learned such a thing. The pebbles on the riverbank were all transparent, indeed crystals and topazes, some with crumpled wrinkles, and corundum emitting a misty bluish-white light from their edges. Giovanni ran to that shore and dipped his hand in the water. However, the mysterious water of the Milky Way was even clearer than hydrogen. Yet it was certainly flowing, as the places where their wrists were submerged appeared slightly mercury-colored, and the waves created by their wrists shimmered with beautiful phosphorescence, flickering as if aflame. Looking upstream, beneath a cliff entirely covered with pampas grass, white rocks spread out flat along the river like a playground. There were 5 or 6 small figures there, seemingly digging up or burying something, standing and crouching. Occasionally, some tool would flash brightly. "Let's go see!" The two of them shouted almost simultaneously and ran in that direction. At the entrance to the place where the white rocks were, there stood a smooth ceramic sign that read, "Pliocene Coast." On the opposite shore, thin iron railings were installed here and there, and neat wooden benches were placed. "Oh, there's something strange here." Campanella stopped in wonder and picked up something black and slender, pointed like a walnut from the rock. "It's a walnut. Look, there are lots of them. They didn't drift here, they're embedded in the rock. These walnuts are large. They're about twice the size. This one isn't damaged at all. Let's hurry over there. They're surely digging something." Holding the jagged black walnuts in their hands, they approached the place they had been before. On the left shore, the waves shimmered gently like lightning, and on the right cliff, the pampas grass, as if made of silver and shells, swayed in the breeze. As they approached, they saw a tall man who appeared to be a scholar. He wore thick glasses for severe nearsightedness and boots, and was busily jotting something in a notebook while giving enthusiastic instructions to 3 assistants wielding pickaxes and using scopes. "Be careful not to damage that protrusion. Use the scope. Oh, dig from a little farther away." No. Why are you being so rough? Upon closer inspection, they saw that more than half of the large, bluish-white beast's bones had been unearthed, lying collapsed in the soft white rock. Around it, about 10 square rocks with the impressions of 2 hooves had been neatly cut and numbered. Have you come to observe? The man who seemed to be the scholar glanced over, his glasses glinting, and spoke to them. You have a lot of walnuts there. Well, those are roughly 1.2 million years old. Quite recent, actually. This place was a coastline about 1.2 million years ago, after the Tertiary period, and shells still emerge from below here. Where the river flows now, salt water used to ebb and flow. This animal you see is called a boss. Hey, stop using the pickaxe there. Use a chisel carefully. The boss is the ancestor of today's cattle and used to be abundant. Are you going to make a specimen? No, it's needed for proof. From our perspective, this is a thick and splendid stratum with various evidence that it formed about 1.2 million years ago. But whether it appears as a stratum from a different viewpoint, or as wind, water, or just empty sky, that's the question. Do you understand? But wait a moment. You can't use the scope there. Isn't there supposed to be a rib buried just below that? The scholar hurriedly ran over. It's time. Let's go, Campanella said, comparing the map with his watch. Then we'll take our leave. Giovanni bowed politely to the scholar. I see. Well, goodbye. The scholar resumed his busy supervision, walking around here and there. The two of them ran as fast as they could over the white rock, so as not to miss the train. And indeed, they were able to run like the wind. They didn't even lose their breath, nor did their knees grow warm. Giovanni thought, if I can run like this, I can run anywhere in the world. The two of them passed by the riverbank from earlier, and the lights of the ticket gate gradually grew larger. Soon, they were back in their original seats on the train, gazing out the window at the place they had just visited. Chapter 8. The Bird Catcher. May I sit here? A rustling yet seemingly kind adult voice came from behind them. It was a man with a bent back, wearing a slightly tattered brown coat, carrying 2 bundles wrapped in white cloth slung over his shoulders, and sporting a red beard. Yes, of course, Giovanni replied, slightly shrugging his shoulders in greeting. The man, with a faint smile beneath his beard, slowly placed his luggage on the overhead rack. Giovanni felt a deep sense of loneliness and sadness and silently stared at the clock in front of him. Then a sound like a glass flute rang out from far ahead. The train was already moving quietly. Campanella was looking around at the ceiling of the compartment. On one of the lights, a black beetle was perched, casting a large shadow on the ceiling. The red-bearded man, smiling nostalgically, watched Giovanni and Campanella. The train gradually picked up speed, and the pampas grass and river flashed by one after another outside the window. The red-bearded man asked the two of them a little hesitantly, "Where are you headed?" "We're going as far as we can," Giovanni answered, looking a bit embarrassed. "That's wonderful. This train can truly go anywhere." "Where are you headed?" Campanella suddenly asked, almost as if picking a fight, which made Giovanni laugh involuntarily. Then, the person sitting across from them, wearing a pointed hat and with a large key hanging from their waist, glanced over and laughed as well, causing Campanella to blush and start laughing too. However, the person wasn't angry at all and replied with a twitching cheek. "I'm getting off just over there. I'm in the business of catching birds." "What kind of birds? Cranes and wild geese? There are also herons and swans." "Are there many cranes?" "Yes, they've been calling for a while. Didn't you hear them?" "No. You can still hear them now, can't you? Look, try listening carefully." The two of them raised their faces and listened intently. Amidst the clattering sound of the train and the wind blowing through the pampas grass, they could hear a sound like water bubbling up. "How do you catch cranes? Cranes, or do you mean herons?" "Herons," Giovanni answered, thinking it didn't matter either way. "Well, it's simple. Herons are formed from the sand of the Milky Way solidifying and taking shape vaguely. Since they always return to the river, you wait by the riverbank, and when the herons descend like this, you catch them before their feet touch the ground. Then the herons solidify and peacefully die. After that, it's easy. You just press them like leaves." "You press herons like leaves? Do you make specimens out of them?" "They're not specimens. Everyone eats them, don't they?" "That's strange," Campanella said, tilting his head. "There's nothing strange or suspicious about it. Look." The man stood up, took a bundle down from the luggage rack, and quickly unwrapped it. "Here, take a look. I just caught them. They really are herons," the two exclaimed involuntarily. About 10 herons, pure white and shining like the Northern Cross they had just seen, were slightly flattened, with their black legs folded, lined up like a relief. Their eyes are closed. Campanella gently touched the crescent-shaped white closed eyes of the heron with his finger. The spear-like white feathers on its head were also perfectly intact. See? Isn't that right? The birdcatcher layered the furoshiki, wrapped it up again, and tied it with a string. Giovanni wondered who would eat a heron in a place like this, and asked, "Is heron delicious?" "Yes, I get orders every day, but geese sell even better." Geese look much more impressive, and above all, they require less effort. "Look." The birdcatcher unwrapped another bundle. There, in a yellow and pale blue mottled pattern, shining like some kind of light, geese lay flat with their beaks aligned, just like the herons before. "These can be eaten right away. How about it? Won't you have a taste?" The birdcatcher lightly pulled on the yellow goose's leg. It came off cleanly, as if it were made of chocolate. "How about it?" "Please try a little." The birdcatcher tore it in two and handed it over. Giovanni tried a little and thought, well, after all, this is candy. It's even tastier than chocolate, but there's no way such geese are flying around. This man must be a candy seller from some field nearby. But I feel very sorry for looking down on this man while eating his candy. Yet he continued to munch on it. "Have a little more," the birdcatcher said, taking out another bundle. Giovanni wanted to eat more, but "No, thank you," he said, declining politely, and the birdcatcher offered it to the person with the key sitting across. "Oh, I'm sorry for taking your merchandise," the person said, removing his hat. "No, not at all. How are the migratory birds this year?" "Oh, they're truly magnificent. The day before yesterday, around the second period, we got complaints from all over asking why the lighthouse light was irregularly spaced. But it's not something we're doing. It's because the migratory birds gather so densely and pass in front of the light." I told them, "There's no point in bringing such complaints to me. Tell it to the commander with the flapping cloak and the very thin legs and mouth, haha." As the pampas grass vanished, a sudden light illuminated the field beyond. "Why is it so troublesome with the herons?" Campanella had been wanting to ask this for some time. "Well, you see, to eat herons," the birdcatcher explained, turning to us, "you must hang them under the moonlight of the Milky Way for 10 days, or alternatively, bury them in sand for 3 or 4 days. That way all the mercury evaporates and they become edible." "This isn't a bird. It's just a confectionery, isn't it?" Campanella, seemingly sharing the same thought, asked boldly. The birdcatcher appeared to be in a great hurry. "Oh, yes, I have to get off here," he said, and as he stood up to grab his luggage, he was already out of sight. Where did he go? The two of them looked at each other. Then, the lighthouse keeper grinned, stretching a bit as he peered out the window beside them. When they looked in that direction, they saw the birdcatcher standing on a field of everlasting flowers, emitting a beautiful yellow and pale blue phosphorescence with a serious expression, arms outstretched, gazing intently at the sky. "There he is. Quite strange, isn't it? He's probably trying to catch birds again. I hope the birds land quickly before the train moves on." As soon as he said that, herons, like the ones they had seen earlier, descended from the empty bellflower-colored sky, shrieking as if snow were falling. The birdcatcher, looking pleased as if everything was going according to plan, stood with his feet precisely 60 degrees apart, catching the herons' black legs as they descended and placing them into a cloth bag. The herons glowed blue like fireflies inside the bag for a while, flickering on and off, but eventually they all turned faintly white and closed their eyes. However, more birds managed to land safely on the sands of the Milky Way than were caught. As they landed, their feet touched the sand, and they shrank and flattened like melting snow, spreading over the sand and gravel like molten copper from a smelter. For a while, the shape of the birds remained on the sand, but after brightening and dimming a few times, they blended completely with their surroundings. After putting about 20 birds into the bag, the birdcatcher suddenly raised his arms, assuming a posture like a soldier struck by a bullet. Then his figure vanished, and in its place, what a relief. "It's best to earn just enough to suit one's body," said a familiar voice beside Giovanni. When he looked, the birdcatcher was there, neatly arranging the herons he had caught, stacking them one by one. "How did you get here all at once from over there?" Giovanni asked, feeling a strange mix of the ordinary and the extraordinary. "Why, you ask?" "Because I wanted to come. By the way, where did you all come from?" Giovanni thought to answer immediately, but then realized he couldn't remember at all where he had come from. Campanella, too, was blushing deeply, trying to recall something. "Ah, from far away, I see." The birdcatcher nodded nonchalantly as if he understood. Chapter 9, Giovanni's Ticket. We're now at the end of the Swan District. Look over there. That's the famous Albireo Observatory. Outside the window, in the middle of the Milky Way, which looked as if it were filled with fireworks, stood about 4 large black buildings. On the flat roof of one of them, 2 large transparent spheres, one a dazzling blue jewel and the other a yellow jewel, were quietly spinning in a circle. The yellow sphere gradually moved away, while the small blue sphere advanced towards them, and soon the 2 edges overlapped, forming a beautiful green double convex lens shape. The center began to bulge, and finally the blue sphere came entirely in front of the topaz, creating a green center with a bright yellow ring. This then gradually shifted sideways, reversing the previous lens shape, until they smoothly separated, with the sapphire moving away and the yellow sphere advancing, returning to the previous arrangement. Surrounded by the shapeless, soundless water of the Milky Way, the black observatory lay quietly, as if asleep. That is a device for measuring the speed of the water's flow. The water, too, the birdcatcher began to say when, "May I see your tickets, please?" A tall conductor wearing a red hat suddenly stood straight beside their seats and spoke. The birdcatcher silently took out a small slip of paper from his pocket. The conductor glanced at it briefly, then looked away, gesturing with his fingers as if to say, "And yours?" while extending his hand towards Giovanni and the others. "Well," Giovanni hesitated, feeling troubled. Then, Campanella, as if it were nothing, produced a small gray ticket. Giovanni, in a complete fluster, thought perhaps it might be in his jacket pocket and reached in. He felt something large and folded. Wondering if he had placed something like that there, he quickly took it out. It was a green piece of paper, about the size of a postcard folded into 4. Since the conductor was holding out his hand, Giovanni decided to hand it over, thinking anything would do. The conductor straightened up and carefully unfolded it, examining it intently while adjusting his jacket buttons. The lighthouse keeper was also eagerly peering at it from below. Giovanni thought it must be some kind of certificate, and felt a slight warmth in his chest. "Did you bring this from the 3-dimensional space?" the conductor asked. "I don't quite understand." Feeling reassured that everything was all right now, Giovanni looked up and chuckled softly. "It's all right. We'll arrive at the Southern Cross around the 3rd hour next." The conductor handed a paper to Giovanni and went on his way. Campanella, unable to contain his curiosity, quickly peeked at the paper. Giovanni was also eager to see it. However, it was covered with a design resembling black arabesques, with strange cross-like characters printed within. As they silently stared at it, they felt as if they might be drawn into it. Then the birdcatcher glanced at it from the side and exclaimed in a flustered manner, "Oh my, this is something extraordinary. This is a ticket that can take you to the real heaven. More than just heaven, it's a pass that allows you to go anywhere freely. With this, indeed, you can travel endlessly on this imperfect fantasy 4th-dimensional Milky Way railway. You two are truly remarkable." "I don't quite understand," Giovanni answered, blushing, then folded it and put it back in his pocket. Feeling awkward, he and Campanella looked out the window again, but they vaguely noticed the birdcatcher occasionally glancing at them as if to say, "That's quite something." "We'll soon be at the Eagle Station," Campanella said, comparing the 3 small, pale blue triangular markers on the opposite bank with the map. Giovanni, for some reason, suddenly felt an overwhelming pity for the birdcatcher beside him, thinking about how he caught herons with joy, wrapped them in white cloth, and looked surprised at people's tickets, praising them in a flustered manner. Giovanni felt like giving him anything he had, even food, if it would truly make the birdcatcher happy. He even thought he would stand on the shining Milky Way riverbank and catch birds for 100 years if it would make him truly happy. Unable to remain silent, he wanted to ask, "What is it that you truly desire?" But realizing that would be too abrupt, he pondered what to do. When he turned around, the birdcatcher was no longer there. The white luggage on the overhead rack was also gone. Thinking he might be outside, preparing to catch herons by looking up at the sky, Giovanni quickly looked out. But all he saw was a beautiful expanse of sand and waves of white pampas grass, with no sign of the birdcatcher's broad back or pointed hat. "Where did that person go?" Campanella said absent-mindedly. "Where did he go? Where will we meet him again? I must speak with him, even if just a little." "I feel the same way. I felt that person was a hindrance. That's why I feel so distressed." Giovanni thought this was truly the first time he had experienced such a strange feeling, and he had never expressed anything like this before. Somehow I smell apples. Could it be because I was just thinking about apples? Campanella looked around curiously. It really is the scent of apples, and I can smell wild roses too. Giovanni also looked around, but it seemed to be coming in through the window. Giovanni thought that since it was autumn, there shouldn't be the scent of wild rose flowers. Suddenly, a boy of about 6 years old with glossy black hair appeared there. He was standing barefoot, trembling with a terribly surprised look on his face, without fastening the buttons of his red jacket. Next to him stood a tall young man, dressed neatly in black clothes, holding the boy's hand firmly, like a zelkova tree swaying in the wind. "Oh, where are we?" It's beautiful." Behind the young man, a charming girl of about 12 with brown eyes, wearing a black coat, clung to the young man's arm and looked out the window with a curious expression. "Ah, this is Lancashire." "No, it's Connecticut." "No, oh, we've come to the sky. We are going to heaven. Look, that mark is the sign of the heavens. There is nothing to fear anymore. We are being called by God," the young man in black said to the girl, his face shining with joy. However, for some reason, there were deep wrinkles on his forehead, and he looked very tired, forcing a smile as he seated the boy next to Giovanni. Then he gently pointed to the seat next to Campanella for the girl. The girl obediently sat there and neatly clasped her hands together. "I'm going to my sister's place." The boy, who had just sat down, said to the young man who had just taken a seat opposite the lighthouse keeper. The young man looked at the boy's curly, wet head with an indescribably sad expression. The girl suddenly covered her face with both hands and began to sob. "Father and Sister Chrysanthemum still have various tasks to do, but they'll probably come soon after. More importantly, how long has Mother been waiting? I wonder what song my precious Tadashi is singing now." Thinking about whether he's playing with everyone, holding hands and circling around the cousin's thicket on a snowy morning, she's really waiting and worrying, so let's hurry and meet Mother. "Yeah, but I wish I hadn't boarded the ship." "Yes, but look at that magnificent river." During the summer, when we sang Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and rested, it always appeared faintly white through the window, didn't it? That's the place. Isn't it beautiful, shining so brightly? The sister, who had been crying, wiped her eyes with a handkerchief and looked outside. The young man gently spoke to the siblings again, as if teaching them. "We have nothing sad anymore. We are traveling through such a wonderful place and will soon go to God. It is truly bright there, fragrant and full of admirable people, and those who manage to board the boat in our place will surely be saved and return to their waiting fathers, mothers, and homes. Come now, it's almost time, so let's cheer up and go while singing joyfully." The young man comforted everyone while stroking the boy's wet black hair, and his own face gradually began to shine. "Where did you come from? What happened?" The lighthouse keeper, who seemed to finally understand a little, asked the young man. The young man faintly smiled. "No, the ship hit an iceberg and sank. Our father here had urgent business and returned to our home country 2 months ago, so we departed later. I was attending university and was employed as a tutor. But on the 12th day, around today or yesterday, the ship hit an iceberg and tilted rapidly, almost sinking. There was a faint moonlight, but the fog was very thick. However, half of the boats on the port side were already unusable, and there was no way everyone could fit. The ship was sinking quickly, and I desperately shouted, 'Please let the little ones board.' The nearby people immediately made way and prayed for the children, but there were still many small children and parents between us and the boat, and I didn't have the courage to push them aside. Still, I felt it was my duty to help these people, so I tried to push the children in front of me aside. But then I thought it would truly be happier for these people to go to God together like this, rather than helping them in such a way. Then again, I thought I would bear the sin of defying God alone and definitely help them. However, I couldn't do it when I saw it. Seeing only the children board the boat, with the mother sending kisses like mad, and the father standing straight, holding back his sorrow, it felt as if my heart was being torn apart. Meanwhile, the ship kept sinking, so I made up my mind, held these 2 people, and decided to float as much as possible, waiting for the ship to sink. A life jacket was thrown, but it slipped and went far away. I desperately let go of the grating on the deck, and the 3 of us held onto it tightly. A voice calling out numbers rose from somewhere. Instantly, everyone sang it in various languages. Then suddenly, there was a loud noise and we fell into the water. Thinking we were caught in a whirlpool, I held these people tightly, and when I thought I was dazed, we were already here. Their mother passed away the year before last. Yes, the boat must have been saved. After all, very skilled sailors were rowing it quickly away from the ship. From there, small sighs and voices of prayer could be heard, and Giovanni and Campanella, who had forgotten many things until now, vaguely recalled them, their eyes growing warm. Wasn't that vast ocean called the Pacific? In the sea at the northern end where icebergs drift, someone is working hard on a small boat, battling the wind, freezing sea spray, and severe cold. I feel truly sorry and apologetic for that person. What can I do for that person's happiness? Giovanni hung his head and became completely dejected. I don't know what happiness is. Truly, no matter how painful it is, if it happens while following the right path, both the uphill and downhill of the pass are steps closer to true happiness. The lighthouse keeper was offering comfort. Yes. It's just that to reach the greatest happiness, all kinds of sorrows are considered as well. The young man answered as if in prayer. The siblings, now exhausted, were leaning back in their seats, fast asleep. At some point, their bare feet had been covered with soft white shoes. The train clattered along the riverbank, which shimmered with a dazzling phosphorescence. Looking out the window on the other side, the fields appeared like a magic lantern show. Hundreds or thousands of triangular markers stood in various sizes, and on the larger ones, survey flags with red dots could be seen. At the edge of the fields, they gathered in such numbers that they appeared like a hazy, bluish mist. From there, or perhaps from even further away, various shapes of faint smoke signals were occasionally launched into the beautiful, clear, bellflower-colored sky. Indeed, the transparent, beautiful air was filled with the scent of roses. How about it? You've never seen an apple like this before, have you? The lighthouse keeper sitting across the way was holding a large apple, beautifully colored in gold and crimson, on his lap with both hands, careful not to drop it. Oh, where did you come from? It's magnificent. Do apples like this grow here? The young man, truly astonished, gazed intently at the many apples cradled in the lighthouse keeper's hands, squinting and tilting his head in fascination. Please help yourself. Please do take one. The young man took one and glanced over at Giovanni and the others. Now, young gentleman over there, how about it? Please take one. Giovanni was a bit offended by being called young gentleman and remained silent, but Campanella said, Thank you. Then the young man took one himself and handed them to each of the two, prompting Giovanni to stand up and say, Thank you. With his arms finally free, the lighthouse keeper gently placed an apple on the lap of each of the sleeping siblings. Thank you very much. Where are such splendid apples grown? The young man spoke while gazing intently. Of course, agriculture is practiced around here, but most of the time, good crops grow naturally. Farming isn't that difficult. If you sow the seeds you desire, they grow abundantly on their own. The rice, too, is hull-less like on the Pacific coast, 10 times larger and fragrant. However, in the place where you are, there is no longer any agriculture. Apples and sweets have no residue at all, each with a faint, pleasant aroma tailored to the individual, and they vanish through the pores. Suddenly, a boy opened his eyes wide and said, I was just dreaming about my mother. She was in a place with a splendid cupboard and books, smiling at me with her hand outstretched. When I said, Mother, shall I go pick some apples for you? I woke up. Oh, we're still on the train from earlier. That apple is right there. I got it from this gentleman, the young man said. Thank you, sir. Oh, look, Sister Kaoru is still asleep. I'll wake her up. Sister, look, I got an apple. Wake up and see. The sister smiled and opened her eyes, rubbing them with both hands as if dazzled, then looked at the apple. The boy was already eating it as if it were a pie. The beautiful peel he had taken the trouble to remove shimmered gray and evaporated before it could fall to the floor, curling like a corkscrew. The two carefully tucked the apple into their pockets. Across the river, a large, lush forest could be seen, its branches laden with round fruits, ripe and glowing red. In the middle of the forest stood a tall, triangular marker, and from within the woods, mingling with the sounds of orchestral bells and xylophones, came an indescribably beautiful melody, flowing and seeping into the wind. The young man shivered with a chill and tried to shake his body. As they listened silently to the music, it seemed as if a bright field of yellow and pale green, like a carpet, spread out all around, and the dew, white as wax, seemed to scrape across the surface of the sun. Oh, look at that bird, exclaimed the girl called Kaoru, who was sitting next to Campanella. It's not a crow. They're all magpies, Campanella called out, casually scolding, causing Giovanni to laugh involuntarily and the girl to look awkward. Indeed, on the bluish-white light of the riverbank, Many black birds were lined up, quietly receiving the faint glow of the river. "They're magpies, you can tell by the way the feathers stand up at the back of their heads," the young man said, trying to smooth things over. The triangular marker in the blue forest ahead came directly in front of the train. At that moment, from far behind the train, the familiar melody of a hymn could be heard. It seemed to be a chorus of quite a few people. The young man's face suddenly turned pale, and he stood up as if to go there, but then reconsidered and sat back down. Kaoru pressed a handkerchief to her face. Even Giovanni felt something strange in his nose. Yet, without knowing when or by whom, the song began to be sung, growing clearer and stronger. Giovanni and Campanella found themselves singing along involuntarily. The blue olive grove, shimmering faintly across the unseen Milky Way, gradually receded into the distance, and the mysterious sound of instruments flowing from there became so faint, worn down by the train's rumble and the sound of the wind. "Ah, there are peacocks." "Yes, there were many," the girl replied. Giovanni saw the peacocks, now small and resembling a single green shell button, occasionally reflecting a pale blue light as they spread and closed their feathers over the forest. "That's right, I heard the sound of peacocks earlier," Campanella said to the fragrant girl. "Yes, there were certainly about 30 of them. What sounded like a harp was all peacocks," the girl replied. Giovanni suddenly felt an indescribable sadness and almost said with a frightened face, "Campanella, let's get off here and go play." "Campanella, I'm leaving now." "I've never even seen a whale," Giovanni said, feeling unbearably irritated, yet biting his lip firmly to endure it, and looked out the window. Outside the window, the dolphins were no longer visible, and the river had split into two. In the middle of the dark island, a tall scaffold was erected, and a man wearing a loose garment and a red hat stood on it. He held red and blue flags in both hands, looking up at the sky and sending signals. While Giovanni watched, the man waved the red flag vigorously but suddenly lowered it and hid it behind him, raising the blue flag high and waving it fiercely like an orchestra conductor. Then there was a sound like rain in the air, and several dark objects flew like bullets across the river. Giovanni instinctively leaned halfway out of the window to look up at them. Under the beautiful bellflower-colored sky, tens of thousands of small birds formed several flocks, each chirping busily as they passed by. "The birds are flying," Giovanni said outside the window. "Look." Campanella also looked at the sky. At that moment, the man in the loose garment on the scaffold suddenly raised the red flag and waved it wildly. Then the flocks of birds stopped passing, and at the same time, a sound like a splat occurred downstream, and it became quiet for a while. Then the red-hatted signalman was waving the blue flag and shouting again, "Now is the time to cross, migratory birds! Now is the time to cross, migratory birds!" That voice was clearly audible. Along with it, tens of thousands of bird flocks rushed straight across the sky. From the middle window where the two were looking out, the girl also leaned out, her beautiful cheeks shining as she gazed at the sky. "Oh, there are so many birds, and the sky is so beautiful," the girl spoke to Giovanni. But Giovanni, thinking she was cheeky and unpleasant, kept silent, pursed his lips, and looked up at the sky. The girl let out a small sigh and quietly returned to her seat. Campanella, looking sympathetic, pulled his face back from the window and looked at the map. "Is that person teaching something to the birds?" the girl quietly asked Campanella. "He's sending signals to the migratory birds. It's probably because a signal fire will rise from somewhere," Campanella replied, looking a bit uneasy. And the inside of the car fell into a deep silence. Giovanni wanted to pull his head back in, but he was embarrassed to show his face in the bright light, so he silently endured it, standing there and whistling. "Why am I so sad? I need to have a cleaner and bigger heart." Beyond that shore, a small blue flame like smoke is visible. It is truly quiet and cold. "I will look at it carefully to calm my heart." Giovanni pressed his hot, aching head with both hands and looked in that direction. "Oh, is there really no one who will go with me forever? Even Campanella is happily talking with that girl, and I am truly in pain." Giovanni's eyes filled with tears again, and the Milky Way seemed to have drifted far away, appearing only as a faint white blur. At that moment, the train gradually moved away from the river and began running along the cliff. On the opposite bank, the dark cliffs also rose higher and higher downstream along the river. A glimpse of large corn trees appeared. Their leaves were curled, and beneath them, beautiful green husks with red threads were visible, along with pearl-like kernels. They increased in number, and now they lined up like a row between the cliff and the tracks. When Giovanni withdrew his face from the window and looked out the other side, he saw that the large corn trees were planted almost entirely to the horizon of the beautiful sky field, swaying gently in the wind. From the tips of their splendid curled leaves, dew glistened like diamonds that had absorbed sunlight all day, shining brilliantly in red and green. Campanella said to Giovanni, "Look, it's corn." But Giovanni, unable to shake off his gloom, simply replied bluntly while gazing at the field, "I suppose so." At that moment, the train gradually slowed down, passed several signals and switch lights, and stopped at a small station. The pale blue clock at the front showed exactly 2 o'clock, and its pendulum ticked accurately in the quiet field, where neither wind nor train disturbed the peace. Around that time, the train resonated like the New World Symphony. Inside the carriage, the tall young man in black clothes and everyone else were dreaming gentle dreams. Why can't I feel happier in such a quiet and wonderful place? Why do I feel so lonely? But Campanella is terrible. Even though he's on the train with me, he's only talking to that girl. I'm really in pain. Giovanni again half-covered his face with his hands and stared out the window on the other side. The sound of a clear, glass-like whistle played, and the train quietly started moving. Campanella, too, whistled the Star Festival tune sadly. Yes, this area is a very high plateau. From behind, the voice of someone who seemed elderly spoke clearly, as if they had just woken up. Even for corn, you have to dig a hole 2 feet deep with a stick and plant the seeds there, or they won't grow. I see. Is it quite a distance to the river? Yes, it's between 2,000 and 6,000 feet to the river. It's become a completely terrible gorge. Speaking of which, wasn't this the Colorado Plateau? Giovanni suddenly thought. Over there, the eldest sister was letting her little sister sleep leaning against her chest, her dark eyes dreamily gazing into the distance, lost in thought. Campanella was still whistling sadly alone, and the second girl, with a complexion like an apple wrapped in silk, was looking at Giovanni. Suddenly, the cornfields disappeared, and a vast black field spread out. The New World Symphony rose more clearly from the horizon's edge, and in the midst of that pitch-black field, an Indian with a white bird feather on his head, adorned with many stones on his arms and chest, and a small bow with an arrow, was chasing the train at full speed. Oh! It's an Indian. It's an Indian. Look, sister. The young man in black clothes also woke up. Giovanni and Campanella stood up. He's running. Oh, he's running. He's chasing us, isn't he? No, he's not chasing the train. He's either hunting or dancing, the young man said, standing with his hands in his pockets, as if he'd forgotten where he was. The Indian seemed to be half dancing. Even when running, his steps were more efficient, and he seemed more serious. Suddenly, the white feather clearly leaned forward, and the Indian stopped abruptly, quickly drawing his bow to the sky. Then, a crane wobbled down and fell into the Indian's wide-open arms as he ran again. The Indian stood happily, laughing. The shadow of him holding the crane grew smaller and more distant, and 2 insulators on the telegraph poles glittered in succession, turning back into a corn grove. Looking out the window on this side, the train was indeed running on a high cliff, and at the bottom of the valley, the river flowed wide and bright. Yes, from here it's downhill. This time, we're descending straight to that water surface, so it's not easy. Because of this slope, the train never comes from over there to here. Look, it's getting faster, isn't it? Said the voice that seemed like the elderly person from earlier. The train continued its rapid descent. As it crossed the edge of the cliff, the river below came into bright view. Giovanni's spirits began to lift. When the train passed a small hut where a lone child stood watching dejectedly, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow!" The train raced on. The passengers inside were nearly thrown backward, but clung tightly to their seats. Giovanni exchanged a laugh with Campanella. The river of heaven seemed to flow vigorously beside the train, occasionally sparkling as it coursed along. Pale red wild carnations bloomed here and there. Finally, the train seemed to settle down, moving slowly. On both the distant and nearby banks, flags with star shapes and pickaxes were erected. "Hey, what do you think those flags are for?" Giovanni finally asked. "Well, I don't know. They're not on the map. There's an iron ship over there." Maybe they're building a bridge," a girl suggested. Those are the Engineer Corps' flags. They're practicing bridge construction. But I don't see any soldiers. At that moment, a little downstream on the opposite bank, the unseen water of the Milky Way flashed brightly, leaping high like a pillar, accompanied by a loud, intense sound. "It's an explosion! An explosion!" Campanella exclaimed with delight. The water that had formed a pillar disappeared, and large salmon and trout glittered with their white bellies as they were tossed into the air, drawing circles before falling back into the water. Giovanni felt so lighthearted he wanted to jump up and said, "It's the Sky Engineer Battalion. Look at that. The trout and everything were tossed up just like that. I've never had such a delightful journey. Isn't it great? If you saw those trout up close, they'd be about this big. There must be a lot of fish in this water." "Are there small fish too?" the girl, drawn into the conversation, asked. "There should be. If there are big ones, there should be small ones too. But since it's far away, we couldn't see the small ones now." Giovanni, completely cheered up, answered the girl with a cheerful laugh. "That must be the Shrine of the Twin Stars!" a boy suddenly shouted, pointing out the window. On a low hill to the right, two small shrines that seemed to be made of crystal stood side by side. "What is the Shrine of the Twin Stars?" "I've heard it many times from my mother before. They are neatly arranged in the small crystal shrine, so it must be them." "Tell me, what did the twin stars do?" "I know too. The twin stars went out to play in the field and got into a fight with a crow, right?" "That's not it. You see, on the banks of the river of heaven, my mother told me, and then the comet came saying, 'Gee gee foo,' right?" "No, that's not it. That's a different story." "Then are they playing the flute over there now?" "They're at the sea now." "No, that's wrong. They've already come back from the sea." "Oh, right. I know, I'll tell the story." The opposite bank of the river suddenly turned red. The shadows of willow trees and other objects appeared jet black, and the invisible waves of the river of heaven occasionally flickered red like needles. A large, bright red fire was burning in the field on the opposite bank, and its black smoke seemed to scorch the high, cold, bellflower-colored sky. The fire burned more red and translucent than a ruby, and more beautifully intoxicating than lithium. "What kind of fire is that? What could be burning to make such a red light?" Giovanni asked. "That's the scorpion's fire," Campanella answered while looking at the map again. "Oh, I know about the scorpion's fire." "What's the scorpion's fire?" Giovanni asked. "The scorpion burned and died. I've heard from my father many times that its fire is still burning." "A scorpion is an insect, right?" "Yes, a scorpion is an insect. But it's a good insect." "Scorpions aren't good insects. I saw one preserved in alcohol at the museum. It had a hook on its tail, and the teacher said you'd die if you got stung by it." "That's true. But it's a good insect. My father said this. Once upon a time, there was a scorpion in the fields of Baldra, living by killing and eating small insects. Then one day, it was found by a weasel and was about to be eaten. The scorpion tried desperately to escape, but the weasel almost caught up. At that moment, a well suddenly appeared in front of it and it fell inside. It couldn't climb out and began to drown. At that moment, the scorpion prayed like this. "Oh, I don't know how many lives I've taken until now. And when I was about to be attacked by the weasel, I ran away so desperately. Yet, in the end, this is what happened. Oh, nothing can be relied upon. Why didn't I quietly offer my body to the weasel? Then the weasel could have lived for another day. Please, God, look at my heart. Instead of wasting my life in vain, please use my body for the true happiness of everyone next time," it is said. And then, before it knew it, the scorpion saw its body become a beautiful, bright red fire, burning and illuminating the darkness of the night. My father said it's still burning. That's really the fire. That's right. Look, the triangulation markers over there are arranged just like a scorpion. Giovanni saw 3 triangular signs on the far side of the large fire, resembling the arms of a scorpion, and 5 triangular signs on the near side, arranged like the tail or hook of a scorpion. Indeed, the bright red and beautiful scorpion fire burned brightly and silently. As the fire gradually moved to the back, everyone heard an indescribable, lively sound of various instruments, akin to the scent of flowers and grass, the whistling of mouths, and the murmuring voices of people. It felt as if there was a town nearby where a festival was taking place. "Centaurus, let the dew fall." Suddenly, the boy who had been sleeping next to Giovanni shouted while looking out the window. There stood blue cypress and fir trees like a Christmas tree, and among them, many small light bulbs were lit, as if 1,000 fireflies had gathered. That's right. Tonight is the Centaurus festival." This is the village of Centaurus," Campanella immediately said. "If it's ball throwing, I won't miss for sure." the boy said boastfully. "We will soon arrive at the Southern Cross. Please prepare to disembark," the young man said to everyone. "I'm also riding the train for a bit," the boy said. The girl next to Campanella stood up restlessly and began to prepare, but she seemed reluctant to part with Giovanni and the others. "We have to get off here," the young man said firmly, looking down at the boy. "No, I don't want to. I'm going to stay on the train a little longer before I go," Giovanni said, unable to hold back. "Come ride with us. We have tickets that can take us anywhere. But we have to get off here." "This is the place to go to the heavens," the girl said sadly. "We don't have to go to the heavens. My teacher said we have to create a place here that's even better than the heavens. But my mother is going, and besides, God says so." "That kind of God is a false God. Your God is the false God." "No, that's not true." "What kind of God is your God?" the young man said with a laugh. "I don't really know for sure, but it's not like that. It's the one true God." "Of course, the true God is only one." It's not like that. It's the one true God." "Isn't that so?" "I pray that someday you will meet us before that true God." The young man modestly clasped his hands together. The girl did the same. Everyone seemed truly reluctant to part, and their faces appeared slightly pale. Giovanni almost burst into tears. "Well, are you ready? We'll soon arrive at the Southern Cross." It was at that moment, far downstream of the invisible Milky Way, a cross adorned with lights of every color like blue and orange rose from the river like a single tree and shone, with a pale blue cloud forming a halo above it. The train became lively with noise. Everyone stood up straight as if they had seen the Northern Cross and began to pray. Here and there, voices of joy like children leaping onto melons and indescribable deep, quiet sighs could be heard. Gradually, the cross came directly in front of the window, and the pale blue halo cloud, like the flesh of an apple, could be seen slowly rotating. "Hallelujah, hallelujah!" The bright and cheerful voices of everyone echoed, and from far away in the cold sky, they heard the clear, indescribably refreshing sound of a trumpet. Amidst many signals and lights, the train gradually slowed down, came directly in front of the singing cross, and came to a complete stop. "Now, it's time to get off." The young man took the boy's hand, and the sisters adjusted each other's collars and shoulders as they slowly walked toward the exit. "Well, goodbye," the girl said, turning back to the two. "Goodbye," Giovanni said, holding back tears and speaking bluntly as if angry. The girl looked back once more with large, sorrowful eyes and then silently left. The train was now more than half empty, suddenly becoming desolate and lonely, with the wind blowing in fully. As they watched, everyone formed a modest line and knelt on the banks of the Milky Way before the cross. They saw a divine figure in white robes extending a hand toward them across the invisible waters of the Milky Way. However, by then, the glass whistle had sounded, and as the train began to move, a silver mist flowed smoothly from downstream, obscuring everything from view. Only many walnut trees stood shining their leaves in the mist, with a cute-faced electric squirrel peeking out from within, holding a golden halo. At that moment, the mist suddenly cleared. A street lined with small electric lights appeared, like a path leading somewhere. The road ran parallel to the tracks for a while. As the two passed by the lights, the small bean-colored lights flickered off as if to greet them, and then lit up again once they had passed. When he looked back, the cross from earlier had shrunk considerably, and it seemed as if it might really hang from his chest at any moment. He couldn't clearly discern whether the girl and the young men from earlier were still kneeling on the white shore in front of it, or if they had vanished somewhere unknown in the heavens. Giovanni sighed deeply. Campanella, it's just the two of us again. Let's go together wherever it takes us. I feel like, just like that scorpion, I wouldn't mind being burned over and over if it's for everyone's happiness." "Yeah, I feel the same way." Campanella's eyes welled up with beautiful tears. "But what is true happiness, really?" Giovanni asked. "I don't know," Campanella said absent-mindedly. "Let's do our best," Giovanni said, taking a deep breath as if new strength was welling up inside him. That's the coal sack. It's a hole in the sky," Campanella said, pointing to a part of the Milky Way while slightly avoiding it. Giovanni looked over there and was startled. A large, pitch-black hole gaped open in part of the Milky Way. No matter how much he rubbed his eyes and peered into it, he couldn't see how deep it was or what lay beyond, and his eyes just throbbed with pain. Giovanni said, "I'm not afraid of such a big darkness anymore. I'm sure I'll go in search of everyone's true happiness. Let's keep going together, no matter how far." "Yes, we'll definitely go. How beautiful that field is." Everyone's gathered there. That's the real heaven. Ah, that's my mother over there, Campanella suddenly shouted, pointing to a beautiful field visible far out the window. Giovanni also looked over there, but it was just a vague white haze, and he couldn't see it the way Campanella described. He felt an indescribable loneliness, and as he gazed absent-mindedly, 2 telegraph poles on the opposite riverbank stood with red arms linked as if embracing each other. "Campanella, let's go together," Giovanni said, turning to look back, but Campanella was no longer in the seat where he had been sitting. Giovanni stood up like a bullet. He leaned out the window so no one could hear, pounded his chest with all his might, and shouted, then burst into tears, his throat full. It felt as if everything had suddenly turned pitch black. Giovanni opened his eyes. He had fallen asleep from exhaustion in the grass on the original hill. His chest felt strangely warm, and cold tears were streaming down his cheeks. Giovanni sprang up like a spring. The town below was still connected by many lights just as before, but the light seemed somehow more mature than before. The Milky Way. He had just walked in, his dream still arched white and hazy, particularly smoky above the pitch-black southern horizon, with the red star of Scorpius shining beautifully to the right, and the overall position of the sky didn't seem to have changed much. Giovanni dashed down the hill in one go. Memories of his mother, who was still waiting without having had dinner, filled his chest. He passed through the black pine forest, circled the faintly white pasture fence, and returned to the dark cowshed from the entrance earlier. Someone seemed to have just returned, as there was a car that hadn't been there before, with 2 barrels loaded on it. "Good evening," Giovanni shouted. "Yes." A man wearing white, thick trousers immediately came out and stood there. "What can I do for you?" "I didn't receive my milk today." "I'm sorry." The man quickly went inside, brought out a bottle of milk, handed it to Giovanni, and said again, "I truly apologize. This afternoon, I carelessly left the barn gate open, and the boss went straight to the cow and drank about half of it." The man laughed. "I see. Well, I'll take it then." "Yes, I'm really sorry." No. Giovanni held the still warm bottle of milk with both hands as if to wrap it, and left the farm gate. Then, after passing through the wooded town for a while and reaching the main street, he continued on for a bit more until the road became a crossroads. To the right, the large bridge tower spanning the river where Campanella and the others had gone to float lights earlier stood faintly against the night sky. However, at the corners of the crossroads and in front of the shops, groups of 7 or 8 women were gathered, whispering about something while looking towards the bridge. In addition, many different lights were lit on the bridge. Giovanni suddenly felt a chill in his chest for some reason. Then, turning to the people nearby, he suddenly asked, "Did something happen?" "A child fell into the water," said one of them, and they all turned to look at Giovanni. Giovanni, as if in a daze, ran towards the bridge. The bridge was crowded with people, and he couldn't see the river. A policeman in a white uniform was also present. Giovanni dashed down from the foot of the bridge to the wide riverbank below. Along the riverbank, many lights were busily moving up and down. On the dark embankment across the river, 7 or 8 fires were also flickering. In the midst of it all, the river, now without the light of the bottle gourd, flowed quietly and grayly with a faint murmur. Downstream, people were clearly gathered at a place jutting out like a sandbar. Giovanni ran steadily in that direction. Then, suddenly, he encountered Maruso, who had been with Campanella earlier. Maruso hurried over to Giovanni. Campanella went into the river." "Why? When did that happen?" Zanelli tried to push the light of the bottle gourd towards the flowing water from the boat. The boat rocked, and he fell into the water. Then Campanella immediately jumped in. He pushed Zanelli back towards the boat. Katu caught Zanelli. But after that, Campanella disappeared. "Everyone's looking for him, right?" "Yeah, everyone came right away." Campanella's father also came. "But they can't find him." Zanelli was taken home. Giovanni headed towards where everyone was. There, surrounded by students and townspeople, stood Campanella's father, with a pale, pointed chin, dressed in black, staring intently at the watch in his right hand. Everyone watched the river in silence. No one spoke a word. Giovanni was so excited that his legs trembled. The acetylene lamps used for fishing moved busily back and forth, and he could see the black river water shimmering with small ripples as it flowed. Downstream, the Milky Way was reflected largely in the river, making it seem as if there was no water, just the sky itself. Giovanni couldn't shake the feeling that Campanella was now only at the far end of the Milky Way, yet everyone still wondered if, from somewhere between the waves, Campanella might emerge, saying, "I swam quite a bit," or if he might have reached some unknown island, standing there waiting for someone to come. However, Campanella's father suddenly spoke clearly. "It's no use. It's been 45 minutes since he fell." Giovanni instinctively stood in front of the doctor, wanting to say, "I know where Campanella went. I was walking with him," but his throat tightened and he couldn't say a word. The doctor, perhaps thinking Giovanni had come to greet him, stared intently at Giovanni for a while. "You must be Giovanni. Good evening, thank you very much," he said politely. Giovanni said nothing and simply bowed. "Has your father returned home yet?" the doctor asked again, still firmly holding his watch. "No," Giovanni murmured, shaking his head faintly. "I wonder what could have happened. I received a very cheerful letter from him the day before yesterday. He should be arriving around today. Could the ship have been delayed? Giovanni, please come over to my place with everyone after school tomorrow." As he spoke, the doctor once again gazed intently at the Milky Way reflected downstream. Giovanni, overwhelmed with a mix of emotions, couldn't utter a word and left the doctor's side. He thought to quickly take the milk to his mother and inform her of his father's return, then dash towards the town along the riverbank.